What is going on everybody, Tech Enthusiast here, and in this video I'm going to show you a budget build gaming PC I built for my kids so they can play some emulators. The inspiration of this build was the Pentium G4560, a budget king CPU. The parts used were cost effective as possible. Now with that being said, let's get started. Firstly is the Intel Pentium G4560 processor, a very cost effective CPU which was bought from BT Shop for only £45. This is a 160GB SSD from Intel. This was bought from eBay for £20 and it will only be used for the operating system. The second drive is a 1TB hard drive by HGST which will be used for general data storage such as videos and games, and I bought this from Amazon for £35. For the RAM, I decided to go with Ballistix. This is a 16GB DDR4 kit. This is clocked at 2400 MHz, not the fastest, but it cost £60, so not too bad. For the CPU cooler, I went for the Cryorig M9i, which is said to be equivalent if not better than the Evo 212. This cost £20 from Box UK. In my opinion, this motherboard is the star of this build. This is the Asus B150i Pro Gaming motherboard. The cool thing about this motherboard is that it has RGB lighting, which you can see demonstrated later on in the video. Another thing I like about this motherboard is that it has a USB Type-C port. This is the only used component I bought for this build and it cost £50 from eBay. For the graphics card, I went for the NVIDIA GTX 1050Ti, the superclocked model. This is a budget gaming graphics card, and since this build is for my kids, this should be more than enough, and I'm sure it can play some PC games with decent performance. I grabbed this for £110 from eBay. For the power supply unit, I went with EVGA. This is a 500 watt semi-modular PSU, which means some of the wires that are not being used, they can be kept outside of the case. This also means that building the PC will be easier and the airflow will be also better. This costs £40 from eBuyer. Having decided to build a budget PC, I went for the Thermaltake Supressor Mini ITX case as it looks quite sleek. This is a slightly newer model than their last one, which was the Core V1. The other reason I chose this case is the simplicity of this case. As you can see, it has screws which are thumb screws, which means you don't need a tool to screw or unscrew the screws. On the top is a plastic glass panel and each of the sides are interchangeable, so if you want then you can have the glass panel on the side. Another good thing is that it has mesh grills, so it can prevent some dust going inside the case, which is a very nice touch, so well done on that, Thermaltake. Now removing the front panel, you can see a massive 140mm fan. This will definitely help the PC stay cool. On the left you have two USB ports, the power and reset buttons and a headphone jack. At the bottom there is ventilation for the PSU, and again there is that mesh to stop the dust getting in. This case costs £50 from Scan. And finally, the build process of this PC. Okay, so we're just gonna jump straight into the games, starting off with the Citra emulator, which is an emulator for the Nintendo 3DS, and this game is Pokemon Sun, and I've put the resolution up to about 4 times, which is just about 1080p. Here is the performance of the emulator. I'm not noticing any slowdowns at all. So the next emulator we have is the Dolphin emulator, and this emulates the GameCube and the Wii. And this game is F-Zero GX for the GameCube, and as you can see it is running very well, and this is one of the very few games that run at 60 frames per second. This is actually a very good game to play, and it's hard at the same time. The next game is Super Mario Sunshine, and this was one of my favorite games on the GameCube. And once again it is running at full speed, and this is at 30 frames per second. I'm not noticing any kind of slowdowns at all, and I'll just play on a bit so you can see how the game runs in general. Then we have Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the Nintendo Wii. Again, a very fantastic game for that console. Okay, so here we have 4-player action. There is a lot of things going on the screen, and as you can see there is barely any kind of lag or slowdown, and once again it is running very well on this build. And finally we have the Nintendo Wii U emulator called SemU. Now this game is Super Mario 3D World. This is one of the games that runs at 60 frames per second, and as you can see it is very fluid. I'm not noticing any kind of slowdowns. I did put the resolution up to about 1080p, and here you can see the gameplay.
Excellent.
And then we have Mario Kart 8. And again, this is another game that runs at 60 frames per second, and as you can see the gameplay is very fluid, no kind of slowdowns at all. And the last game is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and this is quite a demanding game. It doesn't run at full speed, the game is capped at 30 frames per second. However, I did use FPS++, which is a tweak to get it up and running up to about 60 frames per second. You can also use graphic packs and shader caches to make the game run more faster, and you can find more information on that from the YouTuber called BSOD Gaming. So that wraps up for this video. It is something different to my phone comparisons. Do you want to see similar videos in the future? Maybe a Ryzen build? Do let me know in the comment section. Now if you have enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If it is your first time here, then please do consider subscribing, as I have more videos coming up. I will be going to the OnePlus 7 launch event in London, so make sure you are following me on Twitter and Instagram for the latest updates. Also, please hit that bell icon so you get notified as soon as I release my new videos. And like always, thanks for watching, and I will catch up with you in the next video.